I have gone from hopeful and excited to genuinely elated to scared to delusional to fired up to hopeful to then uneasy and now just plain sad. If that ain't Iowa State athletics for you, I don't know what is. This is Locked On Cyclones.
You are Locked On Cyclones, your daily podcast on the Iowa State Cyclones, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into Locked On Cyclones, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Shout out to you for being here every single day and making this your first watch or listen of the day. I appreciate it more than you know. Wherever you're watching or listening, be sure to subscribe so we can prove once and for all that it is, in fact, a Cyclone state. Today, we are talking all Iowa State men's basketball against BYU. First segment, what went wrong, biggest issues kind of shining bright for this Iowa State team against BYU. Then the middle, we're going to talk about the entire game as a whole, my thoughts. And then at the end, final thoughts, this team moving forward, that kind of stuff. I've got a lot to say, that is for sure. So let's go ahead and dive right on into it. First, I do apologize for my voice because, boy, was I loud yelling at this TV because man, this game was unbelievable. I mean, this is what we watch sports for. And, you know, on one hand, I think that if you're an Iowa State fan, I'd rather have been an Iowa State fan watching this game than a BYU fan. And on the other hand, those are the craziest words that have come out of my mouth. So let's talk about why. This game, to me, was the tale of two halves. If you exclude overtime, regulation was the tale of two halves, but not first half, second half. No. It was kind of first 10 minutes, middle 20, final 10. That's how I perceived it. In this first segment, we are talking all about the middle 20, where everything went wrong for Iowa State. And to be quite honest, BYU figured it out. So to talk about the middle 20, we kind of have to talk about the first 10 or so, and I'll keep it very brief. Iowa State punched BYU in the mouth, arguably maybe right between the eyes. Square shot, full force, everything you could ask for. The problem was BYU not only fielded it, but just came swinging right back. And Iowa State felt it. They certainly did. I've got the box score up here. I don't even know if I'm going to reference this in this segment because this is not obviously split into halves, or at least the way I'm describing it. And so it's not really worth that much. I'm kind of just going off of vibes here. Iowa State couldn't buy a shot for a minute there, and that was obviously a problem. But on the other hand, it felt like the offense that BYU had, let's start with the offense Iowa State was running wasn't conducive to scoring, in my opinion. It felt like we were kind of just chucking up threes, a lot of not like sure what's going on. Maybe it's miscommunication, a lot of just kind of dribbling with turned around, like kind of backing them down, unsure dribbling from guards. I don't want to talk too much on the turnovers because that's more of a full breakdown type of comment, but it just felt like the offense was completely out of sorts. And on defense, that was a problem. No, obviously scoring. I tweeted out, I said, like, this team has to realize that you have to score to win. You can hold BYU to 12 points, but if you only score 10, you're going to lose the game. So offensively, that was a problem. We can revisit that. Defensively was where I was having some issues. It seemed like Iowa State had no problem letting BYU just blow by them in that middle 20. Once BYU figured out that if they can just beat the pressure, like there's nothing on the inside. And this is a comment that I made earlier in the season. Was, Iowa State going for those super high traps is great and all. And I still stand by that. I do 100%. But it causes problems when you're that aggressive on the outside and you can't stay in front of the ball. They're going to just beat you. And BYU was not only driving past Iowa State and getting layups, but also on the drive, forcing help. And because Iowa State, to my knowledge, did not come out of man. Now, if I'm incorrect on that, it was probably only like on a single possession or two, and I missed it. But to my knowledge, Iowa State was in man the entire time. So when they drive, they suck in whoever's on that backside. It creates a kick out, and they can whip that ball around. BYU, on the evening, I am going to pull this just because I don't have like that specific, had 14 assists. That's pretty good. I think they averaged like 15 was what they said on the broadcast. And a lot of that came in those middle 20 of just kick, whip, whip, whip. Somebody's going to be open. They can shoot the three, or kick, whip, drive, kick. Like there was ball movement from BYU, and Iowa State couldn't keep up. Once BYU figured out that if you just attack, you're going to be okay. And Brandon Chatfield was in foul trouble basically all night. So that's going to play a role. Okay. That is going to play a role. But Iowa State was struggling for about 20 minutes there, give or take, find themselves down 21. And yes, they do fight back. And we'll talk about that, the full breakdown. And honestly, I don't even know if I have so many thoughts in the full breakdown part. I'm trying to stick to the negatives here because there were some negatives. Let's not be crazy. I know this is Locked On Cyclones. And I try to stick to the positives, but you can't turn over BYU, 27 times? I think 29 times. Yeah, 29 turnovers for BYU. Seeing that number like kind of makes me upset. You can't turn over a team 29 times. It was so bad. So going back to the offense, defensively, it is what it is, I guess. I don't like saying that. But offensively, there was no real plan. It felt like a lot of hero ball in those middle 20. It felt like there wasn't a lot of ball movement and genuinely just kind of whoever could get a shot, go ahead and take it. But whoever has the ball, just kind of dribble around. There were some bad turnovers mixed in. The team looked very out of sorts. It was ugly. It was not good. And then, you want to look at rebounding was another major problem throughout the entire game. Really. Yeah, I would say basically the entire game, except for maybe the last 10 minutes, rebounding was a problem. Beat on the offensive side, beat on the defensive side. One man in particular stood out. Shout out. We'll talk about him in the second segment for sure. But you just out physicaled, and it felt like Iowa State never really adjusted to Kaida. We'll just say it. I'm not going to save his name for the second segment because I'm sure by now you all know his name. We all learned it pretty loud and clear. That's going to happen, I guess. You're going to come across some really good rebounders, but you got to find a way to get a body on him. And the way the defense was ran, especially, like BYU on their offensive side of the rebounding side of things, it was impressive. It was very impressive. But I think in part it was due to Iowa State not adjusting really at all in those middle 20 minutes. Now that obviously the offensive rebounds for BYU was the whole game. It was a major problem. But at the end of the day, those middle 20 were ugly. They were very ugly. Iowa State couldn't buy a shot. That didn't help. But if you can't buy a shot, why are we shooting from so far out? TJ has talked about, and I think it's a great point. It's not something I've necessarily thought of specifically. When you're shooting these outside threes, those rebounds genuinely go a little bit longer. Okay. It doesn't matter so much if you have a guy on the inside, you're not going to get as many rebounds close to the hoop from a deep three. And so why are we shooting those type of shots where it's essentially a toss up if we're getting the ball on the rebound when we're not making them? Like that was a real problem. And I don't know if I didn't think the turnovers were a problem for Iowa State in this game, which has been a problem all year, but out physicaled on the boards for sure. And there was a period in time there where they just looked like they didn't want to play defense. That sounds harsh. It sounds mean, but it was ugly. It was like genuinely whatever BYU wanted to do, drive, kick, whip it around, drive, go up for it, get the free throws. On the night they shot 31 free throws. Now, so did Iowa State. I get that. But that was what got BYU rolling. You're playing unbelievable defense. And BYU sends Saunders to the line, and he gets everything rolling, really, for this BYU team. And they shot unbelievably well outside of Kaida. And it felt like, because it was for a minute there, BYU could only get points at the line. They literally could only get points at the line. And you let them get hot in the line, then it just kind of unraveled from there. So Iowa State, I loved the punch in the mouth to start things. Like I said, genuinely elated. But then you get punched in the mouth, and there was little to no response for about 20 minutes. Now, luckily, that did not last the entire night. We'll talk about the entire game. I will try to be as fair as I can here because there were a lot of great things from this game. But that was ugly. So now we've got the entire game to cover. Don't go anywhere. It's going to be exciting. I know it. Coming up right after this. Get the supplies you need from the site made for the skilled trades, Supply House. Whether you're in plumbing, HVAC, or electrical work, Supply House is the reliable way to order products online. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. Plus, with a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from 400 plus top brands, you'll find exactly what you need delivered fast from coast to coast. Need help with an order? Supply House offers expert support and industry-leading service, so you'll always talk to a real person. And for trade pros looking for an extra edge, their free TradeMaster program offers exclusive perks like a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every order. Thousands of skilled professionals are already taking advantage. Now it's your turn. Join the TradeMaster program today at supplyhouse.com/TM and start ordering plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies with just a few clicks. Plus, use code SH5 for 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com. Iowa State falls to BYU 85-88. Heartbreaker. Well, actually, was it? I don't even know. You're here with Locked On Cyclones, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm still fired up thinking about it, but I'm running out of energy also processing this game. This one. So Iowa State, obviously we've talked about the things Iowa State did not do well, and I didn't like doing that. And I probably didn't even do the best job because I am so like Iowa State's best team in the entire nation. Like that's how I look at it. But maybe after this game, I don't feel the same way. Iowa State comes out the first 6 minutes and holds BYU scoreless. It was electric. It was awesome. Everything about it, I was so fired up. I think they had 8 turnovers in like 7 minutes and 50 seconds or something like that. BYU did. On the night, BYU had 29 turnovers. Iowa State was smothering on defense. I talked about it in Twitter. It was all I could tweet about. Now, Iowa State wasn't scoring. They just weren't. But they weren't going to let BYU score. And it was awesome. Now, on the other hand, like I said, you can't not score. You have to score some. You can hold them to 10, but if you score 8, you're going to lose. That's how the point system works. Let's take a quick gander at the box score here. Your leading scorer for BYU, Richie Saunders, dog, went 13 of 13 from the line. He's like a 77, I think, percent free throw shooter. He's the one that kind of hurt Iowa State, but obviously Dallin Hall with 22 points there was impressive. Demon and Mag contributing 22 between the two of them, 10 and 12, Mag and Demon there respectively. Kaida was the guy that caused major issues with 15 rebounds, 9 of them offensive. Now that's not good. Let's take a look at the Cyclones really quickly. 5 dudes with over 10 points and a couple approaching 20. Excuse me. Your leading scorer, Joshua Jefferson, 19. Milan had 18. Taman Lipsy with 15. Curtis Jones was 16. So those two right in it. And Keyshawn Gilbert with 13. Didn't get any from Chatfield. He was in foul trouble basically all night. And then Nate Heisey contributed 4. Whew, we've made it through that. I will also throw out really quickly. Kaida single-handedly out offensive rebounded the Cyclones, who had 6 offensive rebounds on the night. Kaida had 9, as I mentioned. He had 15. The Cyclones had 24 as a team. Now, that doesn't really make any sense that I said that, but it is just a fact. They had 52 rebounds overall. Iowa State had 24. That's a stat. That's a stat. That's bad. That's not good. That's not good. Now, anyways, that's not what we're talking about. What I liked from this team did get punched in the mouth after delivering the first blow, as we've talked about. And I don't love that Cyclone Twitter kind of gave up on these guys. I did not love that. But nonetheless, these guys didn't know what was going on. They weren't checking their phones in the middle of the game. I tweeted out and said, do not give up on these guys yet, with maybe like 9 minutes to go. But I said, hey, they got to go now. And they basically did. Iowa State turned it on for the last 10 minutes, and it was electric. It really was. Finally found some offense, got the defense rolling again. Were able to stay in front of their man. Like I said, man-to-man basically all night long. And it was pretty. It was, like I said, very hopeful. I think it was like a 5-point game with a few minutes to go, like 3 minutes to go. And it was kind of like one of those where BYU caught a break. They got some free throws or something, and it didn't feel like it was over anymore. Anytime anything went BYU's way, now speaking of refs, we're going to leave that alone. Didn't go either way. It was just bad overall. Okay, that is what it is. Anytime anything went BYU's way in those middle 20 minutes, it just felt like another body blow. Like, just how many more can we take? And then at the end, it was like, okay, Iowa State's in it. And that was something I really did take away from this game. Hilton was there loud. Like, I know that there's like a blizzard warning or whatever, and everyone's worried about the roads. Nobody in Hilton cared. They stuck around. They were loud when Iowa State was down 21 and got this team back into this game. I did love some of the massive effort plays we saw. There was a play with about 9 minutes left that stood out to me. Obviously, you're going to have like the Curtis Jones diving out of bounds, tips it in, Deshaun Jackson involved. There was things all throughout the game that were just major effort plays for Iowa State. This was a hard-fought game beginning to end, but it was about 9:40, something like that left in the game. And Taman Lipsey coming from behind, Saunders had a pretty clear look at the hoop. If not making the layup, probably would have gotten fouled. And Taman put a hand in there and just tipped the ball. And it forced the ball to whip back out and around, and BYU came away with an empty possession. And I said right then and there, I said, that right there was a Taman Lipsey effort play, and that could have been the difference. Goes to overtime, you tell me if it's the difference. Now, there was things left and right. Nate Heisey, what was the layup there? Did LeBron play in that game? It is what it is. But both teams kind of had it. And so I say that to say this team did not quit. And I like that. I do. I love it, actually. But you shouldn't found yourself in that situation. BYU, hottest team in the nation, potentially, arguably. Now Iowa State's 33-2 in the last 2 years at home. Both of those losses coming this year to Kansas State and BYU. Fine, whatever. But BYU is a hot team. I get it. But Iowa State should be really, really good. They should have won this game. I shouldn't say it like that, but it was like Iowa State should have won this game from the tip, and then they should have won it from about 6 minutes in. And then once they got rolling at the end of the game, it was like, you should have won that game. You 100% should have found a way to win that game. Now, you want to talk about overtime, which I haven't even touched yet. Okay. Got to relock in here because what was that? First overtime. Pretty good. I'm not going to lie. Didn't love how it ended. Joshua Jefferson looking away to see how much time was coming down the clock as he was grabbing the ball, loses possession. It's fine. They don't end up making this final shot. It's whatever. I get it. Don't love that first overtime ending that way. At least you want to get a shot off. But outside of that, I mean, you shoot Milan. I think it was Milan hit the 3 in that overtime. 1 of 1 from there. You're 4 of 6 from the field. You make both the free throws. Now, shout out to Jefferson, clutch from the line tonight. I was nervous for him. Iowa State shot 27 of 31 from the line. There's so many statistics in this game. I could barely get them all out. And maybe some of them will leak over into the third. But, Joshua Jefferson from the line was unbelievable and did a good job of getting to the line. And that was where this team excelled. When they finally started driving the hoop, getting to the line, I think BYU had like 8 guys with 4 fouls. I don't have the exact 1, 2, 3, 4 of their dudes on the floor at one point had 4 fouls. And I was like, if you just keep driving, granted they play about 20 dudes, but you're going to put them in a position where they don't have as much autonomy. They can't make as many decisions. And so I liked when Iowa State was driving. That was how the first overtime went, relatively. Second overtime, not that way. Iowa State shot 2 of 5 from the floor, 0 of 3 from 3, did make both free throws. I was very frustrated with the shot selection in the second overtime. I know you're tired. I know that this team was exhausted, but so was BYU. Hall could barely walk to the free throw line to end that game because of the cramping situation. Both teams were exhausted. That's March, baby. I hate to be a hater in that regard, but that's going to happen. You have to keep driving the hoop. It's where this team was excelling. And it felt like whenever the play of Jefferson screening Lipsey at the key, pick and roll, when it wasn't there, this team didn't have an offense at that point. It was wide open 2 or 3 times. How many times do you think you're going to get that wide open look? Genuinely, before BYU is like, all right, we should probably stop that. Force them to shoot from the outside when we weren't hot all night. I mean, on the night, we shot 8 of 28, which isn't a bad night per se, but you also got 1 in overtime. I guess he missed the 3 in the third, but either way, not a great night shooting. So when you get to the inside, you can potentially come away with a foul somewhere or a rebound, a kick out. There was some great moments, defense or offensive rebounding late in the game, but it felt like that last overtime. And then don't even get me started on the last position. That was ugly. That was horrible. I'm not going to lie. What was that? We'll talk about that more coming up right after this. Iowa State loses to BYU 85-88 in what I am now classifying as a heartbreaker. I don't really care if that's the right term or not. That's how I feel. Just because Iowa State dragged me back into that game. If we had been down 20 with 7 minutes to go, 6 minutes to go, Iowa State cuts it to 10. Wouldn't have been a heartbreaker. Would have been sad, definitely. You lose at home like that, that's not good. But you lose in this fashion, and it was just, what are we doing? You're down 2 with you're not going to get the last shot, but you're not going. You need to get a shot at a look at the basket. And the last possession, as I mentioned, just prior to this, was what Keyshawn had to drive there. And I know Keyshawn wasn't playing that well. He did end up with, I think, 13. Yeah, 13 in this one, but he shot 4 of 13. He had a 3. He had 4 at the line. This wasn't Keyshawn's greatest night. So I think it was, if I remember correctly, essentially the drive or, pick and roll to Jefferson wasn't there. There was some uncertainty. Didn't feel like the team was really ready. Keyshawn had to look to potentially drive, kind of second thought it, hadn't really been making a whole lot of noise in the paint. And then gives it to Milan, and as they said on the broadcast, essentially a grenade. And Milan took too long to shoot it. We saw that earlier with Joshua Jefferson at the half, took an extra dribble too many, and fall up short. That is what it is, 85-88. Final thoughts from this game. I don't know how much to give to this game, to be honest. Just an absolute poor effort in the middle 20 minutes, but an undeniable effort in the outside 20, that first 10 and final 10 of regulation. And honestly, the first overtime was really good too. But outside of, if you're going to, what do you want to put weight in? Do you want to put it in the 20 minutes that they played really well? Do you want to put it in the 20 minutes that they played poorly? Do you want to put it on the outcome? Do you want to put it on the fight? Where do you want to put it? This team was, they fought harder than I've probably ever seen them fight, arguably, just because this was such a big deal to come back in and find themselves in a real position to win this game. My MVP goes to Tamin Lipsey, mostly because it felt like he was one of the only guys that kept his head on, which feels like the wrong thing to say, but it just felt that way. Did a very good job of securing the ball. Didn't have a single turnover and had 8 assists. So those kinds of things, those are great. But Joshua Jefferson with 3 turnovers, Keyshawn with 3 turnovers. Milan had 2. The block from behind on Nate Heisey's basically free layup. Iowa State had 4 second chance points in this game. That's not acceptable. Getting out rebounded the way they did, I think what I say was 54-23, 24, 52-24 out rebounded. Not good. Never adjusted to Kaida on the inside. He only had 9 offensive rebounds, but I swear during the game, I was like, he might have 30. It would not shock me. I genuinely don't know how many he has right now because it's probably not 30, but it feels like 30. Every time they needed an offensive rebound, it felt like Kaida came down with it, except for one time late in overtime when there was some situation of, bounced off. I think maybe Nate Heisey had punched it away and Curtis Jones came with it. I don't know what exactly happened there. But the moral of the story is that Kaida was a force on the inside, and it never felt like Iowa State answered that call. They answered the call in the final 10 minutes. They figured out defensively what was going on, how to guard BYU. They forced them into 29 turnovers. That's a good thing. That's a good situation. But then also you lose with forcing 29 turnovers and you lose? So where do I rank this? How much weight do I give this loss? Where is this team? Where does this affect their ceiling? Does this affect, well, their floor, I've said, is kind of at not the floor, but it's kind of low. So this really can't affect the floor. BYU, top 25 team, one of the best teams in the nation. At the end of the day, I'm here to give an opinion. And my opinion is this hurts Iowa State's ceiling. As much as I hate to say it, I'm sorry. I hate to say that. I don't want to say that. But I don't think that this is helping their ceiling. It's probably hurting it. This is a game when you have everybody in the lineup. As we've talked about all year, 19-1 with a full team. You had everybody. This is a game you should win. You're at home. Hilton was at your back when you were down 21. Should you have found yourselves down 21? It felt like for a minute there they forgot they were playing basketball, just letting BYU score. You can't let that happen if you're a Final Four or national championship contender. And I apologize that is not the most positive thing to say, but I don't think that that's wrong. If that's wrong, I don't know if I want to be right. You can't do that. The fact that they got back in the game was what keeps me saying that, like, they might be okay. And I don't know how many times can you say this is a wake-up call. How many times? I think really what this came down to was Iowa State maybe came out too hot, ends up getting punched in the mouth because of it, that return fire. And then they realize we're down 20. We need to win this game. They come back out just guns a-blazing, as they do. Then you find yourself in an overtime situation, and you've already given everything you can. And really without Brandon Chatfield playing as much as he would have as a starter in this game, mind you. And Jackson he only played 12 minutes too. So you had Nate Heisey had 29 minutes. So if you count that up to 30, let's say they rounded down. If you round that up, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 guys over 30 minutes. They got tired. They didn't want to drive the hoop at the end, and I get it. Trust me. I'm a conditioning guy when I go out and play pickup ball. I'm not a shooter by any means. I got to drive to the hoop. After I've driven to the hoop 15 times, I don't want to go again. I am not saying that is like not understandable. I get it. It's a long game. They played basically 3 halves. Realistically, one just had a little bit of an intermission in the middle of it. I get that they were tired. But this game, I don't know. I don't know exactly how to gauge this. This felt like one that they needed to win. I know that they felt the urgency. I know Otzelberger was in their ear about it, but you get out physical 52-24 on the boards. Bad look. You can't win with 29 turnovers. Not a good look there either. There's a lot of red flags from this game. A lot of green flags too, which is why I am so torn. At the end of the day, I do think this hurts their ceiling minorly. I don't know if I'm looking at a national championship. I think they need to outplay where they are to become national champions, to become a Final Four team. Does that mean they can't? No. But I do think that they need to outperform now. This maybe was kind of their ceiling. They found where they're at. Maybe. I don't know. Because BYU is one of the hottest teams in the nation. So you can't just look past BYU like this was some Oklahoma State. No shot to Oklahoma State because they beat us. But I'm just saying it's not the same situation. BYU, very good team right now. So I shouldn't have said that. I didn't mean to take a shot at Oklahoma State, but you're in a situation where you need to play absolutely unbelievable, and you just didn't quite get it done. Is that the end of the world? No. You're probably not going to get the double bye in the Big 12 tournament. We'll talk more about that later. How does that affect the team? Maybe some rest going into March Madness. Where's the seeding? I don't know. I don't have the answers for all of that. But I do think that this showed me, I don't think this team at base value is a national championship contender. I think they need to outplay what they are. Now, that's not the end of the world. They can do that. They can get hot because this is a team that is arguably not hot. They walked out there against BYU middle of the road on the temperature gauge. They were not hot. They weren't, I wouldn't say they were cold either. Got everybody back. And BYU, who was red hot, maxed out temperature gauge, got it done. Shout out to BYU. They were able to get it done. I thought Iowa State showed an unbelievable amount of heart, but there were just too many major issues that weren't addressed in the middle of that game. And so BYU came out on top. You've come out on top for listening until this point. Follow at Nick Marv on Twitter for the mid-game updates. I was firing them off in this one. If you're not subscribed, what are you doing? We're proving it's a Cyclone state here. Until next time, Cyclone fans. Sayonara.